Myself, Arthur Clive, Assistant Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Akshaya College of Engineering and Technology. So, I am going to take about manufacturing process in that sand casting. So, what is sand casting? So, it is highly adaptive process that can form any metal alloys including ones with high melting temperature. For example, steel, nickel and titanium. So it need high temperature to melt. So the most common types of metals are aluminum, brass, cast iron and cast steel. So these are all materials that used for sand castings. So what is sand casting? So sand casting is also called metal casting. It is one of the oldest material shaping methods. So casting means pouring molten metal into the molding cavity of the shape to be made. So then it is allowing it to solidify. So when solidify, the desired metal object is taken out from the mold either by breaking the mold or taking the mold part. Next, the solidified object is called the casting. So by this process, the parts can be given strength and rigidity frequently not obtainable by any other manufacturing process. This is one of the best process for making casting. The mold into which the metal is poured is made up of some heating resistant material. So it needs high temperature, high melting temperature. So the mold into which the metal is poured, it needs high resistant materials, high temperature. Then sand is the most often used as it resists the high temperature of the molten metal. So permanent mold of the metal can also be used to casting products. So in this sand casting, mostly the sand is using. Why we are using this sand? So it can withstand with high temperature. So when the casting is poured into the molten metal, so the molten cavity is made with the help of the sand. So it can resist the high temperature. So we are using this sand. Because of using sand and making casting, it is known as the sand casting. Next we are going to see about mold. So this is the mold. The main part, we can see the main cavity. Though the main cavity is known as the molten cavity or mold cavity. So we can see that pouring basin, sprue, runner, open riser, parting line, vent, core, chaplet, main cavity, blind riser, ingate. So these are all present in the mold. With the help of this mold only, we can make it casting. So we can see one by one in next video. So this is the metal cast part. So with the help of the casting or molding, this is one of the castings which are frequently used in automobiles. So these are all some parts. Next we are going to see about what are the advantages. What are the advantages of this sand casting? So the metal casting process is extensively used in the manufacturing because of its many advantages. So it has many advantages. So we can see what are the advantages. So molten material can flow into very small sections so that intricate shapes can be made by this process. So as a result, many other operations such as machining, forging and welding can be minimized or eliminated. So we can find the time required for manufacturing is very less. Next, it is possible to cast practically any materials, that is ferrous or non-ferrous. So as the metal can be placed exactly where it is required, large saving in weight can be achieved. So the necessary tools required for casting molds are very simple and inexpensive. As a result, for productions of a small lot, it is the ideal process. There are certain parts made from metals and alloys that can only be processed this way. So next we can see size and weight of the product is not a limitations for the casting process. So these are all advantages of the metal casting. Next we can see the what are the limitations. What are the limitations of the sand casting? So dimensional accuracy and surface finish of the castings made by the sand casting processes area limitations for these techniques. For example, many new casting processes have been developed. So when we take into the considerations the aspect of the dimensional accuracy or the surface finish. So some of these processes are die casting process, investment casting process, vacuum seal molding process and shell molding process. So these are comes under the molding process. So these have some of the limitations. For example, when compared to the die casting process, the accuracy of this sand casting is very less. So in die casting we can achieve the good surface finish. Okay, so we can achieve the good surface finish. So when comparatively to die casting and sand casting, so die is the best for that surface finishing. So for example, investment casting process, vacuum seal molding process and shell molding process, when compared to this process, these are some limitations. So next, the metal casting process is a labor intensive process. So it need most of the labors. Nowadays it is full of automatic, but even though we need some of the more labors. So this is one of the limitations. For examples, here you can see mold. So mold, this is the structure of the mold. So what is the use of the pouring basin? The use of the pouring basin, it is a small funnel shaped cavity at the top of the mold into which the molten metal is poured. Here only the molten metal is poured. So what is the use of the sprue? So below that pouring basin, this is the sprue. Through that sprue only what the molten materials will run out. So it will reach in ingate. From the ingate, what will happen? The runner. It flows through the runner. So it will reach to the main cavity. So here you can find that core. So core is supported with the help of the chaplet. So what is the use of the chaplet? For example, chaplets are used to support the cores inside the mold cavity to take care of its own weight. and overcome the some of the forces. There is a wind, so there is a parting line. So what is the use of the parting line? It will separate the core box and drag box. So this is the structure of the mold cavity. So in next topic we can see detail about each and every thing. Thank you.